So now that we've covered doing matrix operations in MATLAB, we'll look at doing some of those same operations in Excel. And so there are some commands that Excel has that all start with an M except for a transpose. Multiplication is mmult, determinant is mdeterm, and inverse is minverse. And remember that as opposed to MATLAB, these are not case sensitive, so you can type them in as either lowercase or uppercase. Now, one important thing about using Excel is that you have to know how big the answer is going to be. That is, the command is going to apply to an array of cells, except for the determinant, which is scalar. And so we have to identify the array of cells where the answer is going to go. We don't have to worry about that with MATLAB. It'll return whatever size matrix that you need. But in Excel, you have to identify where that matrix is going to go. So you have to know beforehand how big the array is going to be. So we'll kind of show that as we go along. So remember to multiply two matrices. If I'm multiplying, you have to have the rows and columns match. The columns of the first one times the rows of the second one. So if you write out the sizes this way, those inner values must match, and the outer values will give you the size of that product. And remember how to do that by multiplying a row by a column. And also remember that you can't switch the order of multiplication. All right, with that little review, let's look at a practice problem here that we want to multiply matrix A by matrix B. First of all, let's take a look at it and see that A is a 2 by 4, B is a 4 by 3, so the 4s match, that's okay. And so our final answer is going to be an array that is a 2 by 3. So there's the answer, and let's show how we would do that in Excel. Alright, so I've got the values in here. So first of all, let's do a little cleanup here and let's identify the matrices. This is matrix A, and this is matrix B. One thing that kind of helps when you're dealing with arrays like this, well, first of all, I'm going to center everything within their cells. And I always also like to add a little bit of color highlighting to those. It kind of makes the arrays stand out, and you see how big they are, what the size is pretty easily. So we're going to multiply A times B to get matrix C. Now, as I said, one thing that's different about Excel is I have to look ahead of time and see how big the answer is going to be. In this case, again, I've got a 2 by 4 multiplied by a 4 by 3. So I need to identify a 2 by 3 array of cells. That's where the answer is going to go. Now, with those cells marked, I'll type in equals to say that there's a command coming, mmult. And you can see that it's being prompted for the first array and then the second array. Remember, the order is important. So I'll take the first array, comma, times the second array. And we'll go ahead and close the parenthesis, although it's not necessary. This next step would do that for us. But here's one thing that's important. If you just hit enter right now, that command will only apply to the upper left cell, in other words, cell E8 in this case. We want it to apply to the whole array of cells, and so we have to use the sequence of keys. Hold down the Control Shift while you hit enter. Control Shift, enter, and that fills that array with the command. And again, you can clean it up if you want with formatting, but there's the answer, which is the same as we saw earlier. Okay, so again, this just kind of steps you through that. Sometimes you can add borders if you want to make those stand out as well. And again, the key is the Control Shift Enter when you're dealing with an array. And again, comparing that to the MATLAB solution where we just had to enter the two matrices and just say it's A times B. We don't have to know the size beforehand, and we do see we get the same answer. Transpose, again, very easy to do, just changing the rows and the columns here. And in Excel, we just have to use the command transpose. Now again, you do have to identify that the size of the array. We've got a 4 by 2, so the transpose is going to be a 2 by 4. So we highlight the 2 by 4, type in this command, use Control-Shift-Enter, and there is our transpose. Determinant, we use the command mdeterm. And in this case, we don't have to use Control-Shift-Enter because this is a scalar value, and so it's only going to be a single number added to that cell. Again, comparing that to MATLAB, get the same answer. And finally, there's the matrix inverse. Remember, it's got to be square to have an inverse. And if that inverse exists, then when we multiply the matrix times the inverse, we get the identity matrix. Okay, so once again, here's in Excel, I've got a 3 by 3. Therefore, the inverse is going to be a 3 by 3. So I have to highlight the 3 by 3 range first. I type in equals m inverse, and in parentheses, the address of those cells. Once again, Control-Shift-Enter, and there is the inverse. How do I know if that's correct? Simply multiply the matrix by its inverse. And remember, you do that, highlight the entire 3 by 3, use the command mmult. And in this case, this is the one case where it doesn't matter which order you go into, because if that second matrix is the inverse of A, then A is the inverse of that second matrix. In other words, you can shift the order of those. In either case, what you're going to get when you multiply those two together, of course, is the identity matrix. So that kind of covers the basics of matrix math that we need to know. And so in the next group of videos, we're going to be looking at how to solve simultaneous equations using matrix methods.